Hello, everyone. Spring migration is underway in North America, and so today I'd like to take some time to talk about one of the birds with the most impressive migration flights, the Sandhill Crane. Sandhill cranes are native to North America, though where they can be found varies wildly depending on what time of year it is. In summer, they will be spending time in Canada, which contains most of the breeding range for the species. When winter hits, they will be living in northern Mexico. In between those seasons, the cranes are constantly migrating throughout the United States, in very famous flocks. These flocks are often several thousand members large, and will join up with other flocks to create even higher numbers. There is one place in which these flocks reach their largest population, and that is the Platte River Basin in Nebraska. The area is a natural midway point on the long journey of the cranes, but other human factors make it into a key staging ground for the birds. The numerous crop fields provide a bountiful food source for the gentle giants. The river itself is carefully maintained by the locals in order to ensure the birds keep coming year after year. And it pays off. Annually, the Platte River shelters an average of 600,000 cranes between the months of February and April. The massive flocks are a sight to behold and never fail to draw crowds of tourists. When not flying or feeding, the cranes spend much of their time in this area preening themselves with their long bills. Unlike other birds that preen to clean themselves, the sandhill crane has an unusual habit of dipping its beak in mud and smearing it all over its gray feathers. The crane uses the iron found in the mud to stain itself into a much deeper brown color. It's thought that this so-called painting practice helps the crane to better blend into its surroundings. Eventually, the time in the Platte River area comes to an end, and the cranes head north to breed. They will search for the borders between wetland and upland habitat before engaging in one of the most delightful courtship periods in the animal kingdom. A years-long partnership is formed and maintained through dance. Both the male and the female will bow their heads and spring up in large jumps, letting the wind carry them for a moment as they softly float to the ground. Occasionally, one will grab a stick or reed from the ground and toss it joyfully into the air as part of the display. Perhaps the most significant part of this courtship is that it doesn't end when the pair breed. Instead, the two will continue dancing throughout the year whenever they find the time. When they do breed, it is up to both of the mates to gather nesting material, throwing it into a large mound in the wetlands. After a sufficient amount has been gathered, the female will arrange the material to her liking. The nests typically measure 30 to 40 inches in diameter and 4 to 6 inches tall, but nests built on standing water are often a bit larger. Once the nest is complete, the female will lay 1 to 3 eggs and will incubate them for around a month. During that time, the male will stand as lookout for predators, flaring his wings at those that come too close, and kicking if things get desperate. Aerial threats will be dealt with similarly, as the crane will jump, kicking and croaking at the attacker. Both members of the pair will hiss at any creature that approaches the nest. After the tricky incubation stage, the chicks will finally hatch. They are covered in yellow down and are very active, so much so that they'll leave the nest within 8 hours of hatching. Unfortunately, typically only one of these chicks will survive, as the parents will not be able to provide for all their young equally. The chick that does survive will grow alongside its parents, taking its first flight at about 3 months old. The family will stay together throughout the subsequent winter, with the juvenile leaving its parents at around 10 months old. It takes another full year for the juvenile to reach sexual maturity, and during that time it grows to its full size of around 4 feet tall, with a wingspan of 5 feet. In the wild, the cranes will live to be around 20 to 30 years old, with the oldest wild crane coming in at 36 years old. In terms of conservation, the sandhill crane population is in a very healthy place. That being said, development and habitat loss are always a threat to be carefully considered. Lastly, I'd like to thank you all for watching. A special thank you to E. Stern for suggesting the sandhill crane. If there's a species you'd like covered, let me know in the comments below. As always, my sources for photos and information are in the description if you'd like to learn more. See you next time.